I was at my desk, reviewing financial reports in my home office, when my phone buzzed. I glanced down. Max was calling. That wasn't typical. He usually sent a text first. I picked up. The instant he spoke, I knew something was off. His voice trembled. "Leo, man, sit down." I sank into my chair. "What's wrong?" He exhaled sharply. "It's Emma, she's at Pulse nightclub. And you won't like this." My chest tightened. "Pulse? What is she doing there?" He paused. "Dancing, kind of. But not just dancing. Public sex. And it gets worse. Oscar's with her, hands all over her." Cold shivers ran down my spine. "Oscar?" "Yeah. And Jenna? She's cheering. A few others are shouting, laughing, like it's a show." My pulse hammered. "Emma wouldn't do that. Not to me. Send me the address." He texted a location, Pulse nightclub. I grabbed my jacket and keys. "I'm on my way." The drive was a blur. I remember the glare of streetlights, the pulse of my own racing heart, but nothing else. I pushed every light, every turn out of my mind. All I could see was Emma and Oscar entwined. Pulling into the parking lot, I rushed inside. Max met me at the entrance, face drawn with guilt. He nodded toward the dance floor. And there she was, Emma. Her back against Oscar, the man she left me for 6 months ago. His hands were slippery with intimacy. They were kissing. Their bodies pressed like melted wax. More horrifying, Jenna and their other friends were there, laughing and jeering. The music droned on, thumping like a heartbeat gone crazy. Something snapped inside me. I stormed forward before I knew it. Emma turned. Surprise flickered, then vanished. She smiled with cruelty. "Leo." I lifted a hand, calm, too calm. "Don't bother apologizing. You're not sorry." Her smile faltered. I turned to Oscar and Jenna. They cheered her on like this was a performance. "You too," I said quietly. "You're my enemy now. And you better remember that." Their faces drained. Then I faced Emma, ice in my voice. "How long?" She ran a finger down her dress strap. 3 months. Since he returned. 3 months. I stiffened. She had been lying next to me, knowing. Then she raised her chin, resolute. "I plan to tell you. I want a divorce." A humorless chuckle escaped me. "Soon enough. You'll get everything you deserve." My finger pointed at her. "And don't set foot in my house, ever. Closure, belongings, anything. If you come near, you'll regret it." Behind her, Oscar took a step forward, shoulders tense. Why threaten her? I stepped into him. "Because if she crosses the line, I'll defend my home, legally." Oscar glared, then reeled back. He knew I wasn't bluffing. Music faded into silence. No one moved. I stepped out. The night air bit my skin, but I barely noticed. Rage was still simmering. I dialed my lawyer. "Grant Walters." "Walters here." I let the engine run over me. "Doug, I need fireworks. Divorce, full control. I want her to regret this." Doug chuckled low. "You want control? House is mine. Business is safe. Bank's clear, I emptied it. She'll scream alimony, but she'll only get court-ordered. Nothing more." Doug laughed. "Leo, cold as always." I didn't respond. I simply drove home. The house waited like a war zone. I paused, took it in. Then I entered the quiet, knowing everything had changed. I pulled out my phone and dialed a number I hadn't used in a while. Jacob picked up on the second ring. Well, if it ain't the old devil himself," I smirked. "Got a job for you and the boys. Can you be here in 30? There was a pause, followed by a short laugh. "Sounds interesting. We're on our way." Exactly 29 minutes later, Jacob pulled up with his crew, a solid group of men I had served with in the Marines. Men who understood loyalty, discipline, and most importantly, revenge. Jacob stepped out first, cracking his knuckles. "All right. What's the mission?" I pointed to the house. "Everything that belongs to Joyce. I want it packed, dumped outside and out of my sight. But do it with extra care." Jose, always the quickest to catch on, grinned. "You want us to leave a message?" I nodded. "Every single piece of her clothing, before you fold it, I want to see the imprint of your boots on it." Jacob chuckled. "Damn. Cool. I like it." They got to work immediately. The house filled with the sounds of cabinet doors slamming, drawers being yanked open, and the steady thud of boots grinding fabric into hardwood. There was a strange sense of satisfaction in it. Watching these men tear through what Joyce once called her space gave me a peace I hadn't felt in days. Jose held up her wedding dress, stretching the silk between his fingers. "Special treatment for this one?" I crossed my arms. "Yeah. Make sure it stinks." He grinned, took a deep swig of chew, then leaned over. A long stream of dark spit splattered across the lace, soaking it like a spreading stain of disgrace. Then, without hesitation, he unzipped his pants. May as well add a little something extra. I didn't flinch as he contributed his own personal signature. The urea soaked deep into the fabric, turning expensive white into something far less pure. When he was done, he wrapped the dress tight and shoved it deep at the bottom of the pile. "Perfect," I muttered, a grin slowly stretching across my face. Let it rot. Just like her lies. A knock came at the door. I already knew who it was. Victoria stood there. Joyce's mother. Worn down, eyes full of worry. Behind her, like loyal mutts sniffing for scraps, stood Paul and Linda. I didn't let them speak. I pointed to the boxes stacked on the porch, some already catching dust and grime. "Before you crawl back to your car, pick those up for your bitch of a friend. If you don't, I'll let nature claim them." Paul opened his mouth, probably to defend her. I just stared him down. He shut it. Linda grabbed his arm and tugged him toward the car. They said nothing as they loaded the boxes into the trunk. I stepped aside and let Victoria in. She looked around the stripped house. Her daughter's touch erased completely. She sighed, her face drawn with something between sorrow and disappointment. When she finally spoke, her voice was soft. "Before I say anything, I just want to be clear. What Joyce did was wrong. There's no justification. No excuse." I didn't respond. I waited. "I'm not here to defend her," she continued, wringing her hands. "I just came to say, she loves that man. And she loves you too." That was where I cut her off. I let out a short, dry laugh. If she ever loved me, she wouldn't have run back to the man who left her high and dry. She wouldn't have treated me like a placeholder. Victoria flinched. But I didn't stop. 5 years. 5 years of marriage, and I find out I was just the safe bet. A temporary bridge until her fantasy came back. She sniffed and dabbed the corner of her eye with her sleeve. "I know how you feel, Aaron. But I can't seem to make her understand." "There's no need," I said firmly. "I don't want her back. She made her choice. She ends this marriage? Fine. I'll make sure she gets exactly what she deserves." Her face shifted. A flicker of fear. "You're not going to harm her, are you?" she asked, hesitant. I smiled. But there was no warmth in it. "No. I won't lay a finger on her, unless she tries something. She stays away from me, I stay away from her." She exhaled, visibly relieved. But I wasn't done. "But the 5 years she wasted?" I leaned in. "I'll get that time back. Not from her alone, but from every backstabber who ever called me a friend." Her expression fell. She looked away. This is exactly what I feared," she whispered. I softened. Just a little. Reached out and hugged her. She felt so small, so fragile in my arms. "I'm sorry," I murmured. "But your daughter is going to pay." When I let go, she wiped a tear from her cheek. Then, unexpectedly, she smiled. It was small. Broken. "I can't undo what she's done, Aaron. But, you'll always be like a son to me." For a moment, I didn't know what to say. Then I nodded. "Thanks." She took a deep breath, straightened her spine, and walked out the door without another word. Victoria sat alone in her living room. The dim lamplight cast long shadows across the walls. A cup of tea sat beside her, untouched, cold. She had been thinking all evening, replaying the conversation with Aaron over and over. Then the front door opened. Joyce waltzed in, her heels tapping with obnoxious confidence. Behind her came Zachary, oozing smugness. They looked like they had just returned from a celebration, not from tearing someone's life apart. Victoria raised her eyes slowly as they entered. She exhaled, heavy and slow. "Dear daughter," she began, her voice thick with disappointment. "I don't even know where to begin." Joyce rolled her eyes, dropping onto the couch and kicking off her heels. "Oh, come on, Mom. He'll get over it. Aaron's always been the quiet, moody type. He'll pick up the pieces." Victoria's gaze hardened. "Move on." Joyce smirked and stretched her arms. "I've already spoken to a lawyer. We'll have him served by next week." Zachary grinned and draped his arm over her shoulder. "That's right. Joyce gets the house and half of his business." Victoria didn't flinch. Joyce ran her fingers through her hair, clearly proud. "Zach and I are going to live there. We're making it ours." Zach nodded. "And once we get the business, we're selling. The money will be more than enough to start something new. We've already talked about opening our own place. Just like we planned in college." Joyce looked up at him dreamy-eyed. "It's going to be perfect, babe?" Victoria was silent for a long moment. Then she laughed. Not the kind of laugh that fills a room. It was low, bitter, so cold it made Zach's smirk twitch. He shifted slightly. Victoria shook her head slowly. You two are more delusional than I thought. Joyce frowned. What's that supposed to mean? You think this is over? That Aaron will just hand you half his life and walk away? Zach raised an eyebrow. Isn't that what the law says? Victoria's smile faded into something grim. Aaron isn't the kind of man you can cheat and expect silence. You took his heart, ripped it out, and now you want his home and his livelihood. Joyce crossed her arms. He'll get what the court gives him. No, Victoria said, rising to her feet. He'll give you exactly what he wants you to have. Nothing more. Nothing less. And you will learn, one way or another, that there are some people you don't cross. She turned away from them and disappeared down the hall, leaving Zachary and Joyce in silence, their earlier confidence now just a little less certain. The eye twitched slightly. The best laid schemes o' mice and men, she began, her voice deliberate, slow, and unsettlingly calm. Gang aft eagerly, she continued. And lee us not but grief and pain for promised joy. Joyce frowned, her brow knitting. What? Victoria leaned forward slightly, her lips curled in a half-smile that was anything but kind. Have you ever heard that poem by Robert Burns? Joyce looked to Zachary, but he only shrugged. No. Victoria nodded knowingly. That's all right, she said. You'll see it firsthand soon enough. She stood, smoothing her slate-gray dress with fingers that trembled only slightly, then turned and walked out without another word. 2 days later, a quiet storm was brewing, one that would not pass quickly. I sat in my car, parked just a block from Joyce's office. The sun had barely risen, casting long shadows down the narrow streets of our sleepy town. I sipped my coffee slowly, watching life unfold through the windshield. The stillness of the moment almost made me laugh. How calm everything looked before the chaos struck. I glanced at my watch. Right on time. Inside the building, the doors opened. A man in a dark navy suit entered, confident, poised, eyes sharp behind his glasses. Philip. My process server. One of the best. Efficient, polite, and always with a flair for dramatics when the situation called for it. He made his way to the front desk, exchanged a few words, then disappeared down the hallway. A few minutes passed. Then he entered Joyce's office. I leaned back in my seat, coffee resting on the dash, the warmth of the cup matching the satisfaction heating my chest. I was not there to see her face when Philip handed her the envelope, but I did not need to. I knew her too well. I could see it in my mind. That flicker of confusion. The raised brow. The cautious fingers tearing open the seal. The pause. And then. Realization. Panic. Rage. I pictured her breath catching in her throat, her heart beating faster as her eyes scanned the papers. Grounds, adultery. Evidence enclosed. Photos. Dozens of them. High resolution. No shadows to hide behind, no room for doubt. Joyce and Zach locked in each other's arms on that club's dance floor, her head on his shoulder, his hands wrapped around her waist. Kisses captured mid-motion. Nothing was subtle. Nothing could be explained away. I could almost hear the silence fall over that office. A silence so heavy, it would feel like the air had been sucked out of the room. In a town like ours, nothing stayed secret. By now, the rumors would be spreading like fire across dry brush. A moment later, I saw her through the glass window, storming toward her boss's office. Brandon. An old friend. A steady man. He had known Joyce for years, had always been skeptical of her smile and those sweet-sounding lies. He once warned me to be careful. I had not listened. You need the day off? He would have asked with a grin, barely hiding the satisfaction behind his calm voice. She must have nodded, shell-shocked. He would have shrugged. Take it. Moments later she was gone. Her steps unsteady, her face pale as she hurried across the parking lot. My phone buzzed in my hand. Brandon. It's done, he said simply. She's going home. Perfect, I replied, already watching her walk to her car. Proceed as I suggested. Brandon chuckled. Oh, I will. Count on it. I drove to a quiet little cafe on the edge of town, one of those cozy spots that smelled like cinnamon, old wood, and fresh bread. I stepped inside, ordered a black coffee and a sugar-glazed donut, then sat by the window. Outside life continued. People walked their dogs, checked their mailboxes, sipped from paper cups as they waited at the bus stop. Laughter filtered from a nearby table. The morning moved on as if nothing monumental had just happened. But across town, Joyce's world was in free fall. I took a bite of the donut, slow and deliberate. Then my phone vibrated again. Her name flashed on the screen. Right on schedule. I picked it up, bringing it to my ear without saying a word. You son of a bitch. Her voice exploded through the speaker, shrill with fury. You planned this? You're trying to ruin me. I stirred my coffee gently with a little spoon, calm as still water. Good morning to you too, Joyce. Cut the crap, Aaron, she barked. I just read through the papers. There's no mention of the house. No mention of the business. Where is my half? I took another sip. Unbothered. Your half. I repeated, voice low, controlled. Your half went down the drain the moment you opened your legs for someone else. Silence. One beat. Two. Then a strangled gasp. You bastard. I leaned back, watching a couple walk past the window hand in hand. Laughing. Loyalty. Such a simple, beautiful thing. If you want anything, I continued smoothly, talk to your lover. Maybe he can buy you that dream house you were planning to steal from me. Her breathing had turned ragged. I could hear the trembling in every inhale. And before you say anything else, I added coldly, just remember, there's a restraining order now. Against you and Zach. You come near my home, my business, and I won't just call the police. I'll press charges. There was one more inhale, sharper than before, maybe prepping for another scream. But I was done. Click. Call ended. I placed the phone back on the table and took another bite of my donut. Still warm. Still perfect. That was one battle won. But this war? Far from over. Now it was Paul and Linda's turn. You remember them, right? Paul, big guy, runs a manufacturing business with a dozen clients and zero spine. Linda, sharp-tongued accountant, always too interested in other people's marriages. Both of them had laughed at that club. Raised their glasses to Zach and Joyce like it was all some soap opera. Mocked my pain. Chose their side. Now they would learn what that meant. The funny part? They didn't even realize I was still holding the keys to their entire business operations. Their IT contracts with us had expired 2 weeks ago. No renewals. No alerts. Nothing. I let them keep using everything: servers, lease systems, cloud backups, remote support. Let them believe we were still friends, still partners. But today that illusion ended. I drove back to the office, feeling more awake than I had in weeks. The staff greeted me, unaware of what was coming. I sat at my desk, opened my laptop, and pulled up the client dashboard. Paul, contract expired. No renewals. Linda, same. No backups. No redundancies. No lifelines. I cracked my knuckles slowly, the soft pops breaking the silence. If I flipped the switch, their businesses would go dark. Phones would stop ringing. Invoices would fail. Orders would be lost. Years of records, gone in minutes. I steepled my fingers, staring at the screen. You chose your loyalty, Paul. You toasted betrayal, Linda. Now feel its bite. Let me properly introduce myself. My name is Aaron Peterson. I served 5 years in the Marines. Did my time in Afghanistan. Later I was stationed in Saudi Arabia. Eventually I came home, tired of war but still carrying its lessons. I took over my father's business. Not glamorous, but vital. We're the IT spine of this entire town. From mom-and-pop bakeries to corporate offices. If there are computers, we're there. If there's data, we protect it. Which means we see everything. And we never forget. Joyce thought she was playing a private game. Paul and Linda thought they were just cheering from the sidelines. They forgot one thing: this is my battlefield. And I never lose on my battlefield. I leaned back in my chair, surrounded by papers and silence. After days of deliberation and planning, it was finally time to set things in motion. I exhaled slowly, picked up my phone and dialed Mark, my client manager. He answered on the second ring, his tone casual. Aaron, what's up? I've got a task for you, I replied evenly. We need to send formal termination emails to Paul and Linda. Their contracts have officially expired. Give them exactly 2 days to back up their data. On the third day, we initiate a full wipe and reclaim all leased equipment. There was a brief pause. Then Mark chuckled. Damn. You're not playing around anymore. I could already hear his fingers clicking across his keyboard, fast and efficient. All right, I'll draft something now. Want to keep it strictly professional, or should I add a little twist? Maybe a subtle jab to remind them who they messed with. I smirked at his suggestion. Professional, of course. But no offer of contract renewals. Make it clear, they're on their own now. Mark gave a low whistle. Got it? They're going to freak out when they realize they ignored all our previous reminders. I've got a record of everything, by the way. I nodded, even though he could not see me. That's the point. They assumed I'd just roll over. They thought we were friends. But that friendship died the moment they sided with Joyce, Mark interrupted knowingly. Exactly, I replied, my voice cold. Mark let out a bitter laugh. The funny part is we sent them multiple renewal notices over the last few months. They either ignored them or let them rot in their spam folder. They thought I'd renew out of habit, I said. Like I owed them something. Well, they're about to find out how wrong they were, Mark said. Want me to include a line highlighting how many notices they ignored? Absolutely. Spell it out in black and white. This isn't some last-minute decision. They had every opportunity and they blew it. Mark hummed thoughtfully. Think they'll come running? Maybe beg for a second chance? I chuckled, the sound low and satisfied. Oh, they will. And when they do, I'll remind them that they backed the wrong person. 2 days passed without a word from Paul or Linda. Then the morning of the third day arrived, exactly as I had predicted. My phone buzzed relentlessly. Paul's name flashed on the screen. I let it ring a few times before picking up, leaning back in my chair with a quiet smirk. The moment I answered, his voice exploded through the speaker. Aaron, what the hell is going on? Why have your people taken our computers? Where are our laptops? How the hell do I access my data? You can't do this. We had an agreement. I held the phone away from my ear, letting him rant like a madman. I could practically see him pacing his office, red-faced and sweating. When he finally stopped to catch his breath, I responded, my voice cool and unbothered. What agreement, Paul? I don't recall any signed contract between us. Do you? He stammered, completely thrown off. Our contract expired weeks ago. Exactly, I said. There was no renewal. And my team sent multiple reminders, every one of which you ignored. So now, it's only fair that I ignore you. And with that, I hung up. Not even 5 minutes passed before the phone rang again. Linda. I sighed, already knowing what was coming. I answered, keeping my tone flat. Aaron, are you really going to do this? Her voice was tight with panic. I did not answer right away. Instead, I turned my gaze to the monitor in front of me. Linda's data was right there, neatly organized, just one keystroke away from oblivion. I hovered my finger over the enter key. Hold on, Linda, I said casually, savoring the moment. I pressed enter. On the screen, her files began disappearing in real time, vanishing row by row like falling dominoes. I brought the phone back to my ear. Well, I just did. Her scream on the other end was almost comical. What have you done? She shrieked. All the data is gone. My clients will kill me. I smiled to myself. Then explained to them that you ignored multiple contract renewal requests from your IT service provider, and that he purged your data in a completely legal, documented manner. I paused, then added with mock sincerity, have a nice day, Linda. I ended the call. With Paul and Linda out of the picture, only 2 names remained on my list, Joyce and her spineless lover, Zach. But I had to be patient. My divorce needed to be finalized before the final strike. Joyce, of course, tried to fight the terms. Her lawyer made a weak attempt to portray her as the wronged party. She wanted the house. She wanted a slice of my so-called business. She wanted everything she thought she deserved. Too bad for her. My lawyer was better. Your Honor, my lawyer began, standing tall and confident. We'd like to establish that the house in question is not a marital asset. It was purchased by my client before the marriage and is solely in his name. Joyce's lawyer shuffled nervously. Joyce glared at us. The judge raised an eyebrow. Does the petitioner's counsel have any evidence to refute this claim? No, Your Honor, her lawyer admitted reluctantly. Strike one. Next, they argued that since I supposedly owned a successful IT business, Joyce was entitled to half. That was when things got even better. My client does not own any business, my lawyer said smoothly. He is merely an employee at his father's IT firm. The judge turned to me. Mr. Peterson, can you confirm your income? Yes, Your Honor, I replied calmly. My salary is just over $1,000 per month. Joyce's head whipped around in shock. Her mouth fell open. My client's pay stubs for the past year are submitted as evidence, my lawyer continued, handing over a thick folder. As the court can see, his income is significantly lower than the petitioner's. In fact, she earns more than he does. The judge examined the documents, then looked at Joyce. Miss Peterson, he said, based on this information, I find no grounds for your claim to any share of his assets or income. Strike two. And then came the best part. In addition, my lawyer added, flipping through another folder with a grin, since the petitioner was the one who breached the marital contract through proven infidelity, and my client earns substantially less, we respectfully request spousal support. Joyce leapt to her feet. What? The judge banged his gavel. Order in the court. Her lawyer scrambled, clearly flustered. Your Honor, this is highly unorthodox. The judge cut him off. Miss Peterson, given your higher income and the fact that the breakdown of this marriage resulted from your infidelity, I am awarding Mr. Peterson spousal support. You will pay him $500 per month for 2 years or until he remarries, whichever comes first. Joyce turned beet red. She clenched her fists so hard I thought she might explode. But there was nothing she could do, not here, not in front of the judge. Strike 3. I almost laughed. As we stepped out of the courtroom, Joyce stormed up to me, eyes blazing with fury. You set this up, she hissed. You manipulated everything. I shrugged. No, Joyce. I just let the truth speak for itself. Her jaw clenched. You think you've won? I chuckled under my breath. Oh, I know I did. And with that, I turned away, my mind already turning to my next move. For sure. I was taking those 2 years for myself, no doubt about it. 3 months later, the divorce decree arrived. Just like that, I was legally free. The last chapter had closed. Now came the final step I had been waiting for. The moment I stepped out of the courthouse, I pulled out my phone and called Brandon, Joyce's boss. He picked up almost immediately, his voice laced with amusement. I guess it's time, he said with a knowing chuckle. I smiled. Yep. Finally free. So, drinks on me tonight? He asked, clearly in a celebratory mood. Not tonight, I replied. I've got a small dinner planned with Mr. Logan Peterson. Brandon burst out laughing. Your uncle, the judge? Hell, man, you knew from day one she was screwed. I smirked. Never give your enemies a chance to fight. You want to know who her lawyer was? Who? He asked, curious. It was Harry. You mean old Harry? The guy who never won a case. I nodded. The same one. And guess what? He's also my uncle. From my mother's side. Small town, right? Brandon was howling with laughter at that point. You played her hard, Aaron. Drinks on me tomorrow night, I promise, I said. I'm just preparing the final papers for Joyce. She'll be out by tomorrow evening. And Zachary? Brandon asked. I spoke to Mr. Patel, explained everything. That guy was fuming when he found out his employee was sleeping with a married woman. By tonight, Zach will be fired. No letter of recommendation. Nothing. After thanking Brandon for the support, I hung up. A week passed. It was a quiet Wednesday evening when I heard a knock at my door. I wasn't expecting anyone. When I opened it, I found Victoria standing there, her face unreadable. Hey Aaron, she said softly. Hey Victoria. Come in. She walked in, composed but clearly holding something back. She took a seat on the couch, smoothed her skirt and gave me a faint smile. I'm not sure how to say this, she began, but Joyce is a mess. I sat across from her, leaned back and nodded with a smirk. Yeah. Not surprising. She's leaving town, Victoria added. I let out a small chuckle. Figured she would. Burned every bridge in this place. Victoria tilted her head, studying me for a moment. No, Aaron. She didn't just burn bridges. She crossed the wrong one. We locked eyes and for the first time in a while, I felt a genuine deep sense of satisfaction wash over me. I'm not sorry for what I did, I said calmly. You don't have to be. She deserved every bit of it, Victoria replied. She took you for granted and destroyed your marriage. She did, I agreed. Victoria hesitated. Paul and Linda are getting divorced. That made me raise an eyebrow. Seriously? Yeah. They're blaming each other for the downfall. Their business is in ruins. Some clients sued them for millions. I gave a low whistle. Millions they don't have. Exactly, she said with a knowing smirk. I leaned back, arms crossed. They got what they deserved. Victoria glanced away for a moment, then added, and Zach? I tilted my head. What about him? She sighed. He already left town. 2 days ago he had a huge fight with Joyce. It got really ugly. I stayed silent, waiting for her to continue. He slapped her, she said quietly. And I didn't interfere. I just watched. All I could think about was how a woman, once loved deeply by a good man, ended up with someone who abused her. The contrast was sad. I closed my eyes for a second and exhaled slowly. That's what happens when you choose chaos over stability. Victoria stood up. I should head home. I stood too. Good luck, Victoria. She gave me one last, genuine smile. Goodbye, Aaron. And with that she walked out. Life has a strange way of balancing itself out. After all the chaos, the lies, the heartbreak, I finally had something I hadn't felt in years. Peace. Pure, undisturbed peace. No more drama. No more manipulation. No more toxic people trying to control my life. My home, once filled with tension, was now quiet, but not the lonely kind of quiet. The peaceful kind. I had time to focus on myself, on what I truly enjoyed. One of those things? Dogs. I'd always wanted a couple of German shepherds. But Joyce? She hated dogs. Claimed they made the house dirty, shed too much, needed too much attention. Turns out, the real reason I couldn't have dogs was because my wife was already a bitch. But now, Joyce was gone, and I could finally do whatever the hell I wanted. So I drove a couple of towns over, found a reputable breeder, and came back with 2 gorgeous German shepherd pups, a brother and sister. I named them Titan and Luna. Titan was bold, strong, always alert, protective. Luna, on the other hand, was sharp, observant, calculating. They were the perfect balance, and soon they became my shadow. They followed me everywhere, room to room, on morning runs, even laid at the foot of my bed every night. They brought energy back into my life. Laughter, companionship, loyalty, all the things I'd been missing. Then came Emily. I met her at the dog park. Or rather, Titan and Luna met her first. She was sitting on a bench, sipping coffee, while her own German shepherd, Rex, was busy wrestling with a stick twice his size. Titan and Luna sprinted toward him, and before I could react, the 3 of them were already locked in a chaotic game of tug-of-war. Dogs barked, tails wagged, and sticks flew. Emily laughed, shaking her head. "Looks like we've got a little team forming." I smirked. "Sorry if they're bothering him." "Are you kidding? This is the most fun he's had all week." We ended up chatting for over an hour while watching our dogs play. Emily was warm, intelligent, funny, with a calm energy that made you feel at ease. Nothing like the manipulative wreck I had once married. There were no games with Emily. No hidden agendas. Just 2 people with dogs laughing about life. What started as a casual conversation turned into texts. Then coffee. Then hikes. Then lazy Sundays watching movies while the dogs snoozed at our feet. Dinners together, cooking meals while the 3 German shepherds hovered around the kitchen waiting for a stray piece of chicken to fall. It wasn't rushed. It wasn't forced. Just was natural. One evening, as the sun dipped low behind the hills, Emily leaned against me on the porch. We both had wine in hand. Titan, Luna, and Rex lay at our feet, peacefully snoring. She looked up at me and smiled. "You look happy." I thought about that for a moment. And for the first time in years, I could say without hesitation, I am. Dear listeners, if Aaron's journey resonated with you, please share your thoughts in the comments. Like, share, and subscribe for more real, raw, and satisfying stories.